Heights. This meeting is being held in accordance with the Sunshine Laws of the State of New Jersey, Chapter 145, by the Council and the Planning Board. For official notices, notice of this meeting is posted on the Borough Bulletin Board and the Borough's website for that purposes. Attendance, can I roll call, Suzanne?
Ms. Bonacorsi? Here. Mr. Madden?
Here.
Mr. Dukakis?
Here.
Chairman Hansen?
Here.
Mayor Hauk?
Here.
Councilwoman Herron? Here. Mr. Famular?
Here.
Mr. Schmidt?
Here.
Mr. Christie?
Here.
And Ms. Borcher?
We have a quorum. Everybody rise to salute the flag, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we get started this evening, I'd like to offer a moment of silence for former Mayor Jack Merrifield, who passed away last week. For those who didn't know, he's a member of this planning board and served in various volunteer roles, including the governing body, planning board, athletics in this town. He was a beloved man. I think I would call him a personal friend, and I would hope everybody would join me in a moment of silence for Jack at this point. Thank you all. Okay, so we have a couple of administrative items this evening before we move on to our business. The first would be we're going to swear in a new alternate, and that's Tyler. I don't have his last name. Christie, I'm sorry. We're going to swear in Tyler Christie as planning board member this evening.
You just rise. Raise your right hand. I state your name. Do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same and to the governments established in the United States and in this state under the authority of the people. I do further solemnly swear or affirm that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform all the duties of the office of the planning board according to the best of my ability.
Welcome, Tyler. Look forward to working with you. Next item we have this evening is approval of the minutes of the January 16th, 2025 meeting. Has everybody that was there on the 16th had a chance to review the minutes? Are there any questions or comments on or revisions on the minutes? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I move to approve the minutes from January.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And the noted abstentions of those that weren't in attendance. Before we move on to our new business, one last thing. We're going to open the meeting to public comment, but this is only for public comment is only for items that are not related to a specific case. So if you're here to talk about either of the redevelopment plan items on the agenda or the two applications that we had this evening, please hold your comment. We'll have a public participation period for each one of those items that are on the agenda. So if anybody has anything that's not related to an agenda item, come forward at this time and we'll have our solicitor swear you in. Seeing none, close public comment. New business. First item this evening is a master plan consistency review of a proposed amendment to the St. Mary's redevelopment plan 14 to 18 White Horse Pike, and that's block 24, lots 4 and 5. I understand we have the distinguished Miss Fury Bruder and Ms. Gibbons this evening to present what we're looking at.
Good evening. Thanks for having me. Leah Fury Bruder, redevelopment planner. We're here tonight because there is an amendment to the St. Mary's redevelopment plan that has been introduced by ordinance by Borough Council. And as you know, it gets referred to the planning board for master plan, essentially for a master plan consistency review. You may recall that this redevelopment plan, yes?
I don't think she needs to be sworn in for a redevelopment plan amendment.
Yes.
Does she? Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm catching Lane.
Real
I'm sorry.
quick.
Well, Leah's sworn.
I think Tyler needs to excuse me.
Okay.
Okay. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so redevelopment law at section 7E provides that prior to the adoption of a redevelopment plan, the planning board should transmit to the governing body its recommendations concerning the redevelopment plan and identify any provisions of the redevelopment plan that you find to be inconsistent with the master plan, and you can also make any recommendations that you see fit. So you may recall that this redevelopment plan was adopted last year, about a year ago. I was here in January of 2024 to discuss the full redevelopment plan, and the board did find that it was consistent with the master plan for a variety of reasons related to master plan recommendations for historic preservation. The master plan recommends historic preservation, but also recommends that adaptive reuses of historic buildings be identified so that those buildings can remain viable. It also has recommendations related to provision of a variety of housing types, including senior housing, and this redevelopment plan supports both of those goals and provides housing near to the central business district, which is also another master plan goal, is to support viable downtown districts, and the provision of additional housing units nearby and walkable areas supports that goal. So what is the amendment for? It's pretty straightforward. As you know, right now, there's a church, St. Mary's. The idea is for the church to partner with an experienced housing provider, and a portion of the church will be retained toward the White Horse Pike, and then there will be about approximately 37 senior housing units, with some of those being affordable, developed more toward the back of the site. And there's a number of improvements that are anticipated. St. Mary's either has or plans to transfer the property to a housing developer, and what this redevelopment plan is going to do is enable a subdivision. Essentially, the plan didn't previously contemplate that. It's about a 60,000 square foot site, so it's not that big. But what the redevelopment plan is currently going to do is enable the whole tract to still be considered as one tract, but enable a subdivision line to be laid down, basically dividing the tract into two separate tax lots. And frankly, it's so that the church can remain tax exempt. And that's kind of what this all boils down to.
Okay.
So in the redevelopment plan, there are definitions added. So there's a definition of tract, which is the whole property, and then there's a definition of lot, which we all know a lot is a tax lot. So in terms of the planning, when the applicant comes in for the subdivision and the site plan, you're still looking at the tract as an overall, but we also have standards so that there can be a subdivision and that they can function independently, but there would be cross-access easements, cross-parking easements, so they'd be sharing their parking and access, and probably sharing maintenance as well.
So essentially, there's no physical change to what was approved prior besides a line on a tax map.
Yep, that's pretty much it.
Okay.
So this redevelopment plan amendment makes that possible so that the applicant can propose that, won't require variances, and it will require them to provide those access and parking easements. I think that's the gist of it. Did I miss anything?
No, not at all. And I have provided a resolution for the board to consider if they do find that this amendment is consistent with the master plan. It does not necessarily need to be adopted this evening. If the board would like time to review it, you can memorialize at your next meeting, as long as the vote that you take this evening gets transmitted to mayor and council, either via chairman or solicitor, and let them know what your decision was regarding the consistency.
If we had a chance to review the resolution, myself and Elena did, we found that it was in good order. So assuming we vote affirmatively tonight, we'll return that as soon as possible.
Okay.
Does anybody have any, would it be appropriate to open it for questions or comments at this point from the board?
Sure.
Any questions or comments from the board? Seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
I guess at this point, we could entertain a motion to determine whether it's, take a vote to see whether we consider it consistent with the master plan or not at this point. Anybody like to make that motion?
I move to consider the amendment to be consistent with the existing master plan at Knightsboro.
Roll call, Suzanne, please. Hold on, can the governing body members vote on this? I don't know the rule on that.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Mhm.
No, I didn't know since it was their plan. Very good. No.
Mayor Halk,
Yes.
Ms. Bonaccorsi,
Yes.
Mr. Madden,
Yes.
Mr. Dukakis,
Yes.
Chairman Hanson,
Yes.
Councilwoman Herron,
Yes.
Mr. Famularo,
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt,
Yes.
and Ms. Borcher.
The ayes have it. Thank you both
Thank
very
you.
much. We'll get that resolution right back to you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Emily. Thanks, Leah. Good to see you. Okay, Tyler's going to return. And our next case is case number 24-12-1P, Michael Modica, 19 8th Avenue, Block 40, Lot 19. Mr. Modica and/or his professionals could come forward. We'll have everybody.
We're doing this one first,
Oh, we're going to do the,
because the mayor's gonna have to step out.
okay, I'm just going on the order that we had.
Yeah. Yeah, so,
I thought we were going to hear the two residential cases when they come back for the
If the board would prefer to hear the other determination study first prior to us proceeding, that's more than fine with us.
I think judging by the crowd this evening, I think we might have significant public comment. So unless anybody else has a objection, I would rather hear the two residential cases first. Are you okay with that? Okay.
Good, okay. Thank you.
And I believe we have 7 voting members, 7 regular voting members. There's a use variance aspect to this case, so only 7 can vote. So it would be Michael, John, Kate, or no, I'm sorry, Michael, John, Dean, myself, Mike, Jen, and who's the first alternate? Is Kate the first alternate, I would imagine?
Yes.
Okay, so Kate will vote on this case. Tyler, you still sit up here and participate, but she'll be the 7th vote. Apologize.
No, please. Thank you.
Come forward, we'll have our solicitor swear you in, provide your qualifications, et cetera. I think you're Cliff, right?
he's
Or no, no,
the
I'm
he's
sorry.
the attorney.
I'm Kevin.
Kevin, and I know Joe. I think Joe's,
Chairman Hanson, good
Go
to
ahead.
see you, sir.
good to see you as well.
I'm Mike.
Come forward, we'll have you all swear in.
Wonderful. Well, first and foremost, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kevin Duke. I'm the owner and principal attorney of KD Law in Haddonfield, New Jersey. It's my privilege this evening to present an application on behalf of my client, Mr. Michael Modica. The property in question this evening is located at 19 8th Avenue here in the borough of Haddon Heights. The property is delineated on your tax map as Block 40, Lot 19, and is situated in your residential 2 or your R2 zone. The applicant is seeking use and bulk variance approval this evening to install an in-ground swimming pool as well as an accessory pool house as an accessory structure. There are specifically 6 variances, one of which is a use variance, and the other 5 are bulk variants. Mr. Mancini, who's our professional planner as well as our civil engineer, will be presenting the meat and bones of our application with his testimony. I would ask that he be sworn in. And I do have to my left, Mr. Michael Modica, who is the applicant as well as the property owner. So we would have them sworn in, Mr. Chairman. Thank
I'll
you.
have them come forward, we'll have them sworn in. We'll have our engineer and planner, Mr. Bach, sworn in as well.
Okay, Mr. Modica, raise your right hand. You swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes. We'll recognize Joe as an expert in the field of professional engineering, professional planning. I'm very familiar with Joe, and I believe have you been before this board before, Joe? Okay, you've been before a lot of my boards. So we'll recognize Joe unless anybody has an objection to that.
Very good. Thank you very much. Joe, if you could please.
Sure. So I'm going to reference first the variance plan that was submitted as part of the application. As Kevin said, it's 19 8th Ave. 8th Ave is at the bottom of the plan. North is roughly up. The site contains an existing 2.5-story dwelling, existing concrete driveways and walkways, paver patio and gazebo, and the shed in the left rear corner. This next plan is the exact same visual and variance plan. We'll blow it up a little bit so it's a little bit easier to see. I don't know, it's kind of a small property, so we'll just blow it up and we'll see what we're proposing. As Kevin said, we're proposing an in-ground pool in the left rear corner, an accessory building that's the proposed pool house, an extension of the proposed driveway. From the existing driveway, it ends at the middle of the house, so the driveway will extend back to the pool house, as well as obviously fencing around the proposed pool and concrete patio. And the hatched area in the middle here is a pretty substantial stormwater management area that's designed to accommodate the increase in runoff. The existing shed in the back has been removed, obviously, and as Kevin said, there are a handful of variances that are required, including a use variance for the proposed pool house. Okay, if I go into those, Kevin?
Yeah, please.
So the use variance for the pool house might be a little bit of a head scratcher because it is something that's sort of normal and accessory to residential use, but pool houses are not expressly permitted as an accessory structure in the R2 or anywhere in Haddon Heights, as far as I could tell. So in as much as it's not expressly permitted, therefore we need a use variance to permit that structure. Additionally, we're asking for relief to permit a lot coverage of 47.6%, but 30% is allowed. A variance to allow the accessory building that I mentioned, which is 600 square feet, is 20 by 30, where a maximum of 450 square feet is allowed. A variance to allow the side yard to the pool, so on the left side of the property, there's a setback to the pool decking of 5.7 feet, where 10 feet is required. We would note that the setback to the water's edge is 10 feet on the left side, but technically the ordinance relates to the pool decking, so it's 5.7 versus 10 required. Same situation in the back. We have 5 feet to the edge of the pool decking where 10 is required, but there's actually 13 feet to the water's edge. And that same variance is required for the pool equipment, which is 5 feet from the property line, where 10 feet is required there. So those are the bulk variances that are required. In regards to the use variance first, as you know, the board has the ability to hear these types of cases and grant this type of relief. In particular cases and for special reasons, and the special reason here is where the positive criteria is met by demonstrating the site is particularly suited to use, which I believe that it is. As I said, while a pool house is not expressly permitted, it is customarily incidental to an accessory to a principal use. And in this case, it's visually consistent with other permitted accessory uses, such as a two-car garage would be permitted in the R2 zone. And we can have the applicant affirm that the structure is truly accessory by stipulating that this will never be used as a separate dwelling unit. And I think that's important, and that's a concern that a lot of boards have. It's intended solely for the use by the owner of the principal dwelling. We're never going to have an accessory dwelling unit used there. So for those reasons, we think, although it's not mentioned in the ordinance, the site is particularly suited to this proposed structure. Looking to the purposes of zoning, we found that permitting the structure would promote purpose I of the statute, which speaks to providing a desirable visual environment, but we think the final product here will be aesthetically pleasing for the entire site. Of course, the negative criteria requires consideration of whether there's any substantial detriment to the public good, substantial impairment of the intent and purpose of your zone plan and ordinance. We do not see any detrimental impacts that will arise from the use of this structure as proposed. Again, the structure itself is compatible with the surrounding uses and is in line with permitted accessory structure. So we believe the deviation of this use will really be imperceptible to the public. So as you're driving down 8th Street, you would not perceive this as a non-conforming structure. It would look just like any other garage. And in that sense, it will not detract from the character of the neighborhood. Likewise, I think the impact of the zoning planning ordinance is minimal. Again, because this is a normal accessory structure that's incidental to the primary use, I don't think the impacts of the zone plan or ordinance are significant. Therefore, for the positive reasons stated, in the absence of any notable impacts, we believe the board could find that the site is particularly suited to allow a pool house here, and there's no substantial detriment to the public good or no substantial impairment of the intended purpose of your zoning plan. The bulk variances have similar criteria, but not quite as stringent as the use variance. Of course, here I think the bulk variance will fall under the C2 criteria where the benefits would outweigh the detriments. Again, as I mentioned, the practical impact of the setbacks for the pool are mitigated by the fact that the actual water's edge of the pool is set back to the 10 feet that's required and 13 feet in the back. So really just talking about some additional concrete patio around the edge there. Likewise, I think the impacts associated with the excess impervious and building coverage are mitigated through the significant drainage and dry well system that's proposed. So to get into that a little bit more, there's a trench drain that's on the patio between the pool and the pool house. There's yard drains near the pool house and in the rear yard area. Those all go to an underground chamber system. Typically, when we design those systems, we design them to handle the water quality storms. Particular storm event in New Jersey, we handle the water quality storm before the excess impervious above what would be permitted. In this case, this system's been designed well in excess of that requirement, where this system can retain and infiltrate up to 25-year storm event associated with that excess impervious. So pretty substantial system that really mitigates any practical impact of the excess runoff. Also, the extension of the driveway, which adds some impervious, allows us to move some parking behind the front building setback line, which we think is desirable for the neighborhood. Similar to the prior testimony, we find the overall project for most purpose I, the municipal land use law, that the plan provides appropriate mitigation measures associated with the impacts of the deviations, and the backyard improvements taken as a whole are normal accessory residence, the pool, and so forth, obviously are permitted accessory uses. So we think overall it's a desirable project that adds some value to this property in the neighborhood, and therefore there's really no impact on the public good that we saw, and no substantial impairment of the intent or purpose of the zoning plan. Additionally, there's no tree clearing that's proposed as part of the project, and we also received the Bach Associates review. There's a few outstanding comments and recommendations in that letter. We would also agree to comply with any of those comments as a condition of approval. We can make those minor modifications to the plan. I know that was a lot of information, so I'll pause and take the rest of the questions.
Do you have anything else to add at this point?
No, nothing further at this point. We would,
Maybe- Okay. Maybe we'll turn it over to Steve and have him go
That's
through his
fine.
review
Thank you.
letter before we have the board ask any questions or make any comments.
He was sworn in. with that.
Yes, Steve was.
Provided our February 18th, 2025 review, the applicant has already indicated rather testimony of the use variance and the bulk variances that are required, and the applicant has already agreed to all our comments. The one variance for the existing side yard setback of 9.5 feet, I assume that you would want that recognized as well.
Yes, thank you. There's an existing non-conforming condition on the left side of the property. That's a 9.5 foot setback to this portion of the bay window that pumps out here, where I think 10 feet is required.
10 feet is required by the zone.
Yes, that's an existing non-conforming condition, but I should recognize that.
Everything else that I
Comfort.
indicated as requiring testimony has been provided by the applicant. And any questions I would entertain from the board.
Anybody, well, I guess we'll open it up for questions or comments from the board. Does anybody have any questions for Steve, the applicant, or Mr. Mancini? Seeing none, we'll close that portion and open up to the public. Anybody from the public want to speak on this application? Questions or comments? Come forward. We'll have the solicitor swear you in. Seeing none, we'll close public and bring it back to Elena to describe a potential motion.
Okay, so the applicant is requiring a use variance, a D variance, and also a bulk variance. I think he did a good job talking about it. It was mostly setbacks. He said that for the use variance, although the pool house is not a permitted as an accessory structure, it is customarily a type of accessory structure that is accessory to a principal use. There is a lot coverage variance being requested, and that's going to be mitigated by a lot of the stormwater improvements that the applicant proposes on the property. He did say that for special reasons and particularly suited, like I said, it's a pretty common accessory use for the principal use, even though it's not permitted in the zone. The purposes of zoning was it was purpose I under municipal land use law to improve the visual environment for the negative criteria. The applicant stated that he didn't see a detriment to the zoning ordinance or the master plan. It did testify that it would look like kind of any other garage. And for the bulk variance, it was also a C2 variance that was going towards to enhance the visual environment.
Just like that, the two conditions, if we can specifically have in the resolution.
Yeah, perfect.
One, that the accessory structure would not be permitted to be an apartment.
Yeah.
And I would actually add, or sleeping quarters. Yeah, so I think that's important. So it doesn't turn into an extra bedroom or anything else like that. Second thing is, even though it's in my review letter, specifically in the resolution, that an as-built grading plan be provided prior to a certificate of occupancy,
Thanks.
just to make sure everything's in. Is that acceptable?
Yeah, and the applicant would comply.
Perfect.
And permit those conditions.
Any further questions, comments from the board?
I have a few questions. I see that one, based on your review letter, you're okay with, we're going from coverage issue of less than 30 to 47. And are you okay with what you have in your review letter, basically?
So what we have to, well, the board has to decide this, but what they have done to mitigate, if you recall from other variance applications for increases of impervious of lot coverage over our ordinance, what is being done to mitigate that additional impervious coverage? Many times, as Mr. Mancini's indicated in his testimony, it's storage and providing infiltration of the difference of the water quality storm. Here, when the water quality storm is generally considered a storm, a 2-year storm, a storm that happens with a frequency every 2 years. They are going to step further and have provided and submitted drainage calculations and a subsurface system to mitigate the increase in the 25-year storm versus the 2-year storm, a storm that typically would happen in New Jersey once every 25 years. It's important to note that under residential site improvement standards, stormwater drainage in municipal roadways or roadways to be dedicated to municipalities are based on the 25-year storm. So I am satisfied that they have done a substantial mitigation in terms of stormwater drainage for the 47.6%. So I can't say I'm okay with it because it's still variance, but in terms of the technical nature of it, I think it's a substantial mitigation that they proposed in terms of the stormwater versus the lot coverage.
And can you just explain why you want to extend the driveway from where it is now all the way back to the pool house? I mean, the pool house is going to be, if it's passed, it's going to be the pool house, not the garage. So what I'm trying to understand is why have all that additional coverage?
I think part of it is just getting parking. I think generally we like to see parking behind the building. We don't like to have parking in the front yard, so this just sort of allows us to do that. That's the main reason. It also allows us to get. Go ahead, Mike.
I can answer
Add anything
this.
else.
So our street, we can't park out front of our house because
That's
of,
right.
so my wife and I have a hard time getting in and out of our driveway. We have 2 cars. By taking the driveway back and having it kind of fan a little bit, it allows us to both pull in and come out. It also just leaves more room for parking. So, yeah.
And then with respect to the pool house, we're talking about separate, it's generally, I think, if it's turning into a garage, turning into a shed, you're gonna remove a shed, it's supposed to be a passive use. And what, obviously the pool house is defined as pool house, I'm assuming you're gonna have people change out, are there any other plans that you have with respect to the pool house?
It's a single room. It's gonna have a half bath, just so that my kids aren't running in and out of the house to go to the bathroom. It's just much easier to go right there. and it's going to be just a giant living room, probably with a front door. There won't be a garage door, but it's just going to be a pretty vanilla structure.
So one of the mitigating factors as that could be considered for the impervious coverage, their existing driveway just goes approximately 50% down the side of the house. This will provide parking through the rear of the house, and it is consistent in terms of location, and the driveway configuration is consistent what we typically would encourage for a detached garage under our goals and objectives of our master plan. Just a point to consider.
In the calculations of the impervious covers, the pool area itself was included in that,
Yes,
correct?
pool areas are still
Which
considered impervious.
we've talked about before, there's a certain amount of
Storage that would be, there's a certain amount of
capacity
storage.
that can be
Correct.
used. Yeah.
But you can't count on that in the winter if they have a solid cover. So that's why we always have to, per DEP standards, we have to consider it impervious.
Thank you.
Just have a clarifying question on the pool house. It's just a one-story pool house, right? No upstairs? Just a low, one-story, low rise, big living room with a bathroom?
Yep.
Thank you.
The height would still have to comply with our accessory building standards.
16 feet. With a 20-foot width, you should be able to bridge to the other 16.
Should be.
Could be. Okay.
Other questions, comments? Guess we'll entertain a motion to approve or disapprove the application based on Elena's summary and the conditions, the two conditions that Steve stipulated.
And all the other conditions
All
contained
the
in
other
our February
conditions.
18th letter.
Use and bulk together, right?
Yeah, we'll do them in one motion. We have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the application under the conditions of the Bach letter and what was the other part? Not to be used as a dwelling
Dwelling or sleeping,
or sleeping.
and the as-built.
And the as-built.
We have a second?
I'll second it.
Any question or comment on the motion? Seeing none, roll call, Suzanne, please.
Mr. Madden?
Yes.
Chairman Hansen?
Yes.
Mr. Dukakis?
Yes.
Ms. Bonaccorsi?
Yes.
Mr. Famularo?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Motion ayes have it. Project's approved. So next month, we'll do a resolution memorializing the decision that was made here this evening. And then.
Was that only 6 votes?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
Kate
one more
needs to,
vote.
Kate. Okay,
Perfect, thank
still
you.
Thanks,
passes. So anyway, we'll do
Yeah, I did a 5, but.
we'll do a,
Giving you guys this is what it's going to look like.
Was
Oh,
was
that's-
that submitted in the application? Do we want to mark that as an exhibit
just to be safe,
to be safe?
Variance plan is exhibit A.
we already voted, so.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So you know the appeal period, obviously.
Certainly do.
So after we do the resolution next month, once the notice of that is posted in the newspaper, there's a 45-day appeal period that somebody could technically appeal the decision that was made here this evening. So if you proceed with the project, you get permits and everything, and you proceed before the appeal period is expired, you'd be doing so at your own risk, just to make you aware.
Very well. Thank you very much, folks.
Thanks. Good to see you, Kevin.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Is there any way you can email me?
All right.
that
The next case this evening is case
information?
number 25-1-1P, Pasquale Evangelista, 1304 Sylvan Drive, Block 83, Lot 6. Let the record reflect that Councilwoman Herron and the mayor have joined us. This guy here. It's, 1304 Sylvan Drive, Mr. Evangelista, is he here? Okay, here we go. Come forward, ma'am. We'll have our solicitor swear you and anybody who's going to give testimony in this evening.
Have a seat, and you pull another chair right up. Move out of the way so you get.
Hello.
Hi. Yep, can we have your name for the record?
Alice Evangelista.
Okay.
Your name?
Pat Evangelist.
Maurice Linnell.
All right, and will you all raise your right hand? Pat, too?
He can't hear.
Okay. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Want to tell us about your project?
We want to build a deck off the side of her house that is above ground, 12 by 16 feet long. It's tucked inside the corner of her house. It's within the setbacks to the left and the setbacks to the back. And there is zero impact on rainwater runoff because it is an above ground deck with no roof. So whatever.
So effectively, the rainwater should go through the slabs
Right-
onto the
Right
ground.
back.
And if you wish, I can go right to our review letter.
Let's do that.
Thank you. We issued a January 9th, 2025 review letter. The variances that they're seeking this evening is for maximum lot coverage, 42% being proposed, 30% required in the zone, and existing is calculated at 40%. Also, it should be noted that there are several existing nonconformities. These are pre-existing conditions. We just want to note on the record if you're successful with your approval, so it carries forward with your property. And that is front yard setback of 20.47 feet where it is existing, and the requirement is 25 feet in the zone. And then also there's an existing side yard nonconformity at 4.52 feet where 5 feet is required in the zone. We noted in our review that the applicant is proposing an above-ground deck. Just a few questions. The deck will have gaps within between the deck boards.
Spacing, yes.
Yes, and then underneath the deck would be earth. It would not be concrete or a hard surface or anything else like that. As we noted in our review, a mitigating factor is the NJDEP considers that type of deck to be pervious, even though our ordinance does not, and they still wish us to note for drainage purposes, it's considered pervious. For lot coverage, it's still considered impervious, but I believe it's a mitigating factor that the rainwater that is being proposed for the additional 2% of lot coverage will drain through the deck and will drain into the soil beneath. Also, we note in our review letter that the improvements do not result in more than 500 square feet of land disturbance, and a grading plan would not be required for these proposed improvements. That is all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Any board members have any questions or comments?
Steve, what's driving the 40% existing, 40% existing lot coverage?
It's the calculation of current, not so much what is.
I don't have access to the.
Yeah, so it's just a calculation of, exactly. They do have a masonry garage towards the rear of the structure, and they do have a driveway that extends
long
all the
driveway to
way.
the back.
A
Okay,
long
that's why I
driveway
was
that
wondering
extends
driving
all the way.
driving.
Again, that is, one of the goals and objectives that we always have in our master plan that promotes the character of our residential districts, and that is causing a good portion of the calculation of lot coverage.
Any other questions or comments for Steve or the applicant?
Maurice, can you spell your last name?
Lanneaux.
Thank you.
Since we don't have any further questions or comments for Steve or the applicant, we'll open this application up to the public. Anybody from the public want to comment on this application, come forward. Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Bring it back to Elena to explain a potential motion.
So the applicant is requesting bulk C variances for their max lot coverage, where they're proposing 42%, or they have 40% existing, so it is already over the 30% required. As Steve explained, there are mitigating factors, and they also have some pre-existing nonconformities to their property that are contributing. They also have that long driveway that extends back, which is one of the goals of the master plans. So this does sound like it's that the applicant is potentially going for a C1 bulk variance as opposed to the C2. So there are some like physical characteristics of their land that are causing them not to be able to meet the ordinance.
Would anybody like to make a motion to approve or disapprove the application?
I'll make a motion to approve the application subject to Fox conditions, and I'd also like to incorporate the pre-existing non-conforming uses that are there. Also.
Any questions or comments on the motion? Seeing none, entertain a roll call, Suzanne.
Sure. Mr. Madden?
Yes.
Ms. Bonacorsi? Yes. Mr. Dukakis?
Yes.
Chairman Hansen?
Yes.
Mayor Hauck?
Yes.
Councilwoman Hurd? Mr. Famularo?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Ms. Borcher?
Yes.
And Mr. Christie?
Yes.
Motion passes. The ayes have it. You're approved. So if you, I don't know if you heard my spiel after the last application. Next month when we meet, we'll do a resolution that memorializes the approval that was granted here this evening. And then that, after that happens, that notice or that the notice of that decision will be published in the Courier Post in the retrospect, or one of them. And then from that period on, there's a 45-day appeal period that somebody could technically appeal the decision that was made here this evening. Considering that nobody came out in opposition of the application and the minor nature of it, I would say that's highly unlikely. But if you want to proceed with getting your construction permits and starting on the project before that appeal period expires, you're doing so at your own risk. That's it.
Thank you.
Will this be turned over to the building department now, or do we have to go back to them and reapply?
Go see Suzanne.
I believe you submitted for
Yeah, construction
a building
permits.
permit before, and then
Yeah.
you refer to the board, if you would go see
Go back
Suzanne.
and see Suzanne. Okay.
And they'll work it out.
All right. Thank you.
There's nothing further you need here.
Okay. Thanks, folks.
Thanks for coming in. Good luck with your project.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we've got one last item this evening. And that is block 20, or for public hearing on the redevelopment study preliminary investigation report prepared by Pannoni for the following block and lots. Block 26, lots 1, 2, 2.0, 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.1, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 21. Block 28, lots 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 34.02, 34.01. Block 44, lots 1, 1.01, 16 through 20. Well, that's okay. I thought you were trying to stop me from having to do an auction here. Block 50, lots 8 and 9. Block 51, lots 9, 9.01. Block 80, lots 1, 2, 2.01, and 2.03, AKA the study area. And I see we have Ms. Givens again on this matter.
Yes, good evening.
And Matt from Pannoni is with us to present the.
Yes, Matt Wanamaker from Pannoni. Why don't we just have Matt sworn, please, and then any conversation that we have is just sworn testimony.
Yep. Ready? Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
So as the chairman mentioned, there are quite a few lots included in this preliminary investigation, which is a first step in any redevelopment area designation. Back in July, Pannoni was tasked with doing this investigation to explore whether or not the properties met the statutory criteria to be declared an area in need of redevelopment. A few years ago, a number of these properties were declared to be rehabilitation areas. And so that designation will not go away. It remains attached to the properties. The investigation that Mr. Wanamaker's firm conducted was to look at a different portion of the local redevelopment and housing law in terms of whether or not the properties satisfied the conditions to be declared an area in need of redevelopment. There's an extensive report that has been submitted by Mr. Wanamaker's firm, and it has been placed on file with the borough. A map delineating the study area has been placed on file. Appropriate notice of this meeting has been published in the retrospect on 2 consecutive occasions, and has been provided to all the property owners who may be impacted by the investigation. Mr. Wanamaker will go through the investigation, the study. I see that there are a lot of people here who are interested in the results of the study. And I don't know if it would be appropriate to
Yes.
allow them to know that there are only a few properties that actually are going to be designated, rather than.
You want to let them know what the properties, the 3 properties are that are actually, that were found to be in need of redevelopment, so that if they're not affected, or if they're not interested in the 3 properties that are actually designated, for lack of a better term?
Sure. Well, the recommendation within this study from Mr. Wanamaker's firm is that Block 26, Lot 12, which is the PNC Bank building on Station Avenue, along with Block 80, Lots 1, 2, and 201, and potentially 203.
The old window factory site.
The old window factory site. All other properties that are contained within the study area have been found not to qualify to be designated as redevelopment areas pursuant to the investigation that's right. So I would like for everyone in the audience to understand if their property is not one of those lots.
And they don't qualify for redevelopment at this time.
At this time, and
So those people would have, everyone that's within the study area would have been noticed.
everyone in the study area, everyone whose property is listed in the study has received notice.
So everybody.
But not everyone has received a copy of the report, even though
Okay.
it's available. And so I just wanted to make sure that people in the audience are not waiting for a half hour, 45 minutes to hear whether or not their property qualifies. Only those properties were determined to meet that criteria at this time.
So to summarize, everybody would have got a notice that their property was being considered as part of this redevelopment study. Subsequently, once the study was final or conducted, there were only 3 blocks or 2 properties, for lack of a better term, that were designated that met the criterion under New Jersey law to be in need of redevelopment and qualify for redevelopment, which would be basically the window factory site on Kings Highway between Dallas and the park. And then the second property is the old Mid-Atlantic Bank up here. So if you're interested in one of the properties that's not one of those 2 properties, then your property really isn't affected by this study. It was not deemed to be in need of redevelopment at this time. Just so I don't want you to have to sit here and listen to the whole report if you're
And I
you're
don't
not
want to
affected.
discourage anyone from staying and
No, I'm
listening,
not trying to
but I
discourage anyone.
also didn't want anyone
Okay. Thank
to
you.
be nervous the entire time.
I wanted to do the
That's
same
really what I
thing.
was concerned with. I don't want people to be.
No, I don't want to waste anybody's
So
time.
it's just the bank and the bank on the corner.
Bank on the
police
corner
Station and the window factory
site.
property
So
itself.
it's that area back there
And
behind.
then the area
So
behind.
it's block 80, and it would be lot 1,
2
2,
lots, right?
201, and potentially 203.
So it's the window factory. and-
Sherwin-Williams behind
Sherwin,
it,
okay.
and then the Mr. Neal property is what we'll be discussing.
Thank you.
We're going to discuss all of them. Mr. Wanamaker is going to go over everything, but I just wanted to make that clear. So I
The one property
I
in
know
the
that this can
Mason.
be stressful for people whose property is being considered, and I just wanted to give.
No, I
people a
think that
little
was
bit of color.
appropriate.
Okay, so at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Matt so he can explain everything to
Where's yours, Matt?
All right, thank you and good evening. I apologize, I didn't get here early enough to figure this out. Did have a.
Yeah.
Oh,
Sorry.
yeah, no,
Yeah,
okay.
thank you.
No, all good. We did have a presentation. I could send this to you guys if you want to post it somewhere later. Just real quick, our agenda tonight, first I'm going to go through the investigation process, then we'll talk about the parcels that we investigated, and then I will discuss the results. So as mentioned, council adopted resolution on July 2nd, 2024, directing the board to undertake a preliminary investigation to determine whether certain properties qualify as non-condemnation redevelopment area. So our process to do that included site visits. We did meet with the owners and occupants of each of the sites that we looked at, parcel by parcel survey. We did a background report research, including tax records, all kind of background research. So we were pretty thorough. It took a couple months, and we did look at each parcel individually. Again, this would just list off the parcels again. We do have a map over on the right side for reference. The map on the right shows the study parcel areas, how they are grouped into 4 different study area sub-areas across town. And then I guess we could just jump in. I don't know how much everyone is familiar with the redevelopment process. You guys are.
Been through a few here in town, so.
All right, great. So I don't need to list all the criteria, but for the most part, we focused our activity on criteria A, B, C, and D, and also section 3. The reason for that is, E, F, and G didn't seem to apply. Nothing's in, a UEZ, nothing was destroyed by fire, et cetera. So we focused on A, B, C, and D, and also criteria 3. So that said, sub-area 1, which we have now on the board on the left, that is block 80, lot 1, 2, and 201, all seem to qualify according to our research. Block 80, lot 1, which is all the way on the left, the one you see striped, that met criteria B and D. To recap, meant that discontinuance of use for at least 2 consecutive years, and also buildings or improvements which are dilapidated, obsolete, overcrowded, et cetera. We've also got block 80, lot 2, which is the green one there. And that for that one, we determined section 3 was applicable because we can't really redevelop the entire block, or those other 2 parcels at least, without possibly using that one for access or, it actually shares a wall with block 80, lot 2.01. So there was a lot going on there that we didn't really feel we could redevelop properly lot 1 and 2.01 without lot 2 as well. And then again, lot 201, we found eligible for criteria D, which to restate is the dilapidated, obsolete, overcrowded, detrimental safety, health, morals, welfare of the community. Next sub-area 2, if you wouldn't mind flipping that, is along Kings Highway. This is block 44. I have some pictures on the right to get you situated, and none of these blocks qualified after our research. Now go to sub-area 3. Now we are downtown on Station Ave. You see the yellow box there is lot 12 on block 26. And we found that was eligible for criteria B. And being as you need only one, that one meets the qualifications for redevelopment. Sub-area.
Matt, could you explain why it meets criteria B?
Sure. You want me to go just do that one or go back through the other 2?
Just for this one, so that we don't have to.
Okay. So this, again, block 26, let me just find a place here. Lot 12. Okay, demonstrated conditions that align with B due to the discontinuance of use for about 2 years. While the vacancy period, as stated, is relatively recent, this is all in our report as I'm reading from, the discontinuance of the commercial use on this property represents a significant vacancy that, if it continues, can be detrimental to the welfare of an otherwise thriving downtown street. So, and we did find some minor facade deterioration. There was some blocks that appeared to be falling off the building. So there's some dilapidation happening on the exterior facade of the building, but for the most part, very important chunk of your downtown that has been abandoned, and we thought that that was critical to that designation. Yep. And this is our last sub-area 4, which had two municipal blocks, 4 parcels total, and we did not find that any of those met the criteria for designation. For the most part, that
Can you
is.
describe those 4 blocks again? What they are?
Yep, so I can turn this to you a little bit. This is between Atlantic and 7th, along with Picot Lane. Which one's the municipal properties here?
That's 50th municipal property.
Yep. So we ran through each of the criteria for each lot and did our background, tax research, et cetera, and just found that we couldn't justify any of the criteria for these properties. Any questions?
I do have a question, I'm just trying to like, put together.
Sure.
With respect to block 8,
Lot 2 is the one with the Sherwin-Williams and then lot 2.
yeah, where's the location? Right, so. Sorry. So you got, with block 8, you have lots 1 and 2.01, and I think you said 2.03 is in by necessity.
2 is.
Lot
Or
2
lot
is by
2.
necessity.
So I guess my
yes.
question then is, sorry, is for 2.03, why wouldn't that be included as well as lot 2? Because that whole block or lot 2.01 goes all the way behind lot 2.03 as well.
Right. It seemed to us that 2.03, it just, the criteria says that you can use criteria 3 if it cannot be redeveloped without that parcel.
Correct.
And we found that it could be redeveloped without parcel 203.
Got it. So you're saying that in order to get to 2.01, you can use lot 2, which becomes the necessity.
Right.
Versus 2.03.
You could use 2.03, but it's such a high bar to reach to justify that one versus the other that it made a lot more sense.
So with 2.01 would be without 2, 2.01 would be developed.
Correct. Yes.
What compels 2, if 2 is not in play, Sherwin-Williams decides to stay Sherwin-Williams, would 2.01 be developed with 2.03?
It could. The sharing the wall, it adds an extra complication with sharing the wall, but also if you're going to have access on 2.03 additional for a development that large might be a complication with Dallas Ave. So it's just a mix of operational and bulk issues that put that together.
Mr. Chairman, can I answer a question? I'm not providing any
Of course
testimony.
you can.
Is part of your inclusion under the criteria 3 for lot 2 also that it does have existing access easements that services lot 2.01?
It does, yes.
So,
Where those don't exist for 2.03 to 2.01.
It's-
correct, there's no
2.03 is
cross-access
more-
easements, but there's a cross-access easements very specifically through lot 2, which is the Sherwin-Williams property, that it provides access to 2.01.
Okay.
2.03 is more self-contained. The others are all really interrelated.
Because there's no way to get around the back from
Right.
2.0, from the front of 2.03.
Right. And that's what Section 3 is all about. If they're all interrelated parcels, but there's nothing otherwise that would include that one, that's when we would designate that.
Yeah, that's the back of the field. That's on 2.1. That's this.
Okay.
Do you else have any questions? Do you have anything further, Ms. Givens? Or?
No, we can open it up to the public
Okay,
and
that's
see if
what I was-
anyone has any
I was gonna
any
go
questions.
next.
for us.
We'll open the hearing up to the public at this point. If anybody from the public wants to come forward and ask questions or make comments about the study, come forward and we'll have you sworn in.
Is there everyone in at once who's going to make comments? I mean, I don't even know if they need to be sworn in because they're not really.
Should I sit?
You can
I'm not writing it down. I mean, we can say it.
Yeah, we'll swear
And that's,
everybody in.
I always
Just-
prefer.
Is that- Are you
But
two going to
anyone-
make comments as well?
Yeah,
We'll have you all three sworn in at once then, just to make it easy on everybody.
Yeah, anyone who's going to give public comment, just raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Go with Chris Mrazinski first.
You want me to go first?
You're the ringleader.
That has
Not-
connotation. Wait a second.
Not necessarily.
I meant that in an endearing way, in a loving way.
Only in a loving way. So Chris Mrazinski, 109 3rd Avenue. My first question may have been answered. I apologize, I couldn't hear the answer, but the lot 2.03, I'm curious why that's not recommended as part of.
For all of the criteria that we had to review, it didn't qualify for a need or redevelopment. So it's in good condition. The operational flow of the property still works. The building's been maintained. There's really just, we couldn't justify it.
So and this is a general comment. If the objective is to redevelop the entire area, the green lot in the middle is the most complicated to get control of. It's owned by a company in California. It's occupied by a national tenant. The ability to get that is difficult at best, at least in any reasonable amount of time. So I'd encourage, to the extent it can be flexible, I'd encourage all the lots to be explored together and not separated, so that there's the ability to do it either in totality, which would probably be ideal, or if for some reason the green can't be got or controlled in some reasonable time frame, that it doesn't prevent anything from happening.
So let me ask a question then. To his point is if and the testimony was that the Sherwin-Williams property was necessary because of the access, the cross access, that the majority of the reasoning for that was the cross access easement to allow access to the back of the site. So say that you weren't able to secure that property, would that make 2.03 more appealing or more appropriate as far as being necessary if 2.01 wasn't available?
But according to the state statute, very difficult to justify that.
Okay.
To say that that one parcel is required to be when the other one was.
Well, excuse me, but I don't think that it would negate, I think you could retain the Sherwin-Williams property
Yeah.
for the effective redevelopment based off of the statute. While at the same time considering, and remember, this is a non-condemnation designation, and therefore the property owners are not required to relinquish title to anything. And so you have to have a willing buyer, willing seller in order to get all of the parcels into a particular configuration that's going to lend itself to an effective redevelopment. So that's also something to consider.
Is a distinguishing difference between these properties, that lot 2 and 2.01 share a wall?
That and the access.
Yeah.
And, right, I mean theoretically.
Yeah.
So would, okay, so 2.03, there'd be no access. There's no way to get through 2.03 to 2.01.
Correct me if I'm wrong, the lot, the driveway actually sits on lot 1.
Be sure.
I
Lot
think it's a
one,
shared
lot
driveway.
1, lot 2, and
Oh, yeah, right.
it's right in the middle.
Right.
I remember that from when Antares was here.
Yeah.
And it's, again, I'm looking at, it looks like you drive out lot 1 with parking on lot 2 that extends into lot 1 as well.
And that might not even mean that the entire property of lot 2 would have to be taken or used in the redevelopment, they just mean that there's some additional easement agreement to whatever happens on the other two parcels.
Can I add something? I would, again, if the goal of the borough is to get all 4 lots redeveloped at some point in our lifetimes, having the optionality of all 4 of them is very helpful versus being blocked by one of the owners, which sits right in the middle. So the more flexibility and the more optionality there is for somebody in the future to redevelop it, that's helpful. And whatever criteria you would have to look at, obviously, I know there's rules and regulations, but it'd be challenging to not have the flexibility of all 4 of them. And, the gentlemen that are behind me, they'll speak to specifics. I'm just talking more generally about, as much flexibility and optionality is a better outcome versus forcing it into one spot versus another. So that's all I have.
Thanks, Chris.
You bet.
Anyone else?
So,
Mr. Neal, correct?
yes. So my goal is to see if I can get added into this redevelopment.
And you are the owner
I'm
of
owner of
2.03.
2.03, correct.
If I can ask a question, and maybe if you would read off the criteria 3.
Doesn't,
Uh,
it doesn't qualify. Yeah.
I do have it.
Yeah, so I think it'd be important for the board to hear about the criteria that could be used to include a property for an effective planning area, just for
Yeah.
further discussion.
So this is criteria, this is a separate section. So the criteria are A through H, 8 different criteria. Under subsection 3 of the local redevelopment and housing law, this permits a redevelopment area to include land, buildings, or improvements which of themselves are not detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare, but the inclusion of which is found necessary with or without change in their condition for the effective redevelopment of the area of which they are a part.
Can I ask you a question, Emily?
Sure.
When we make our recommendation back to council on this, are we allowed to make that recommendation that we consider including 2.03?
Yes.
I know it doesn't.
Because you find that that particular lot, based on the questions that have been raised and
respect
your
to
own
access.
inquiry, you feel that it does satisfy subsection 3 and should be included for those reasons that have been put on the record.
Okay, thank you.
You can redraw the line, so.
Okay.
And to Matt's point, if this were a condemnation redevelopment area, my opinion would be a little bit different on whether or not to include a property like that, to
Not
force a
talking about
property
eminent
owner
domain,
to
so.
participate, willing property owner who participate in the process. And I think that lends itself to a better, more effective redevelopment area.
Is that sustainable in terms of if we make that decision based upon the testimony today, that we want to include that property, that's something that could, because it's not non-negotiable, with or any challenges to it?
Well, because we are explaining the reasoning behind including it, we have it on the record, we have the property owner here, it's not objecting, it's actually asking to be included for purposes of access points. I think that based off of the board's own knowledge and understanding of the area, the history of the site and the characteristics, you certainly have the ability to make those recommendations. I don't want to dissuade you from any course of action that you take. And I do fully understand why Mr. Wanamaker's findings are what they are. So
He's
I don't
following
wanna-
the statutory
He did a good job.
criteria.
He
Yeah,
did
no,
a
we're
really
not.
good job, so.
I don't think
You
it
have
is.
the property owner here, the risk is that you're opened up to development by someone saying, what? You don't need to use my property, you can use
The fact that it's non-condemnation.
Yeah, the non-condemnation, it makes it extremely important to have cooperation from the property owners.
And the criteria that Mr. Wanamaker had to use to prepare the study is pretty rigid, as far as pretty defined and rigid, as far as what he can and cannot designate.
To designate on its own under the 8 criteria that are available, yeah, this property simply does not
Of course,
qualify.
it's pretty new. It's been a lot of work put into it.
Yeah.
So the fact that we don't know, it hasn't even been contemplated what exactly is going to go there, what the layout would look like, or what the use would be, then it would be, in my opinion, almost completely appropriate for us to consider that within this greater area so that it might be able to be utilized to effectuate whatever the governing body comes up with and, powers that be come up with that's actually going to be contemplated for this site.
Yes.
The history is zone residential. Right? That whole block.
It has a use
Yes.
variance, correct?
It is.
So everything there requires a use variance, which I know we've seen in
One-
some cases. So, wait, I'm looking around to you, Steve, or needs to know what's the history of the block, the borough's zoning residential versus considering the fact that some of these buildings are quite old?
It's zone residential. In your master plan, it's always been contemplated and recommended that rezoning be looked at for all 4 of those parcels. And also in the master plan, this is just from memory, I don't have it in front of me, but also it's contemplated that it be reviewed exactly what the borough has done here for possibly the designation of area in need of redevelopment. Again, it's a non-combination investigation that is being reviewed this evening. And in my opinion, I'm not sworn, but maybe I should be, real quick.
I swore you in
Well,
earlier.
Yeah.
I'm sworn for the whole thing,
For the
good. So you have, and I agree with Emily, you have the ability to say that, yes, in your opinion as a board, that this property should be included under subsection 3 for an effective planning area for redevelopment. And I believe you're perfectly within your guidelines to do this. Plus, having the property owner here indicating that he has no objection on the record is very important.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Anything further, Mr. Neal?
I do not.
Thank you. Thanks
Thanks.
for coming in this evening. Good to see you.
Please.
Hey, good evening. Gary Morris with Lot 201, right behind Sherwin-Williams and Mr. Neal here. Good to see you again. So we're completely in agreement with the designation to redevelop that area, so get no opposition from us.
Perfect.
So, all right, we've tried, I guess, the last couple of years, try to get hold of the owners of Sherwin-Williams Paint, but they just go unanswered.
We're just seeing something happen here, hopefully. In the future.
Absolutely. So, the cue balls here agree. So we're good. Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thanks for coming out.
Yeah, to echo what Mr. Fox is saying, I have the 2016 master plan examination in front of me, and part of it, at the end of it, for included, says where redevelopment or rehabilitation area designation has potential to advance borough's goals and objectives to incentivize redevelopment of properties vital to anchor in the local community, to create community value, and have positive ripple effects on the borough, and those areas may be recommended for study and utility for redevelopment. So I think that's kind of what we're addressing right now. It's all kind of what Mr. Fox said about that.
Anybody else from the public want to come forward and speak or? Yeah.
I did stand in the back when you were swearing.
I saw you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. John Acapini, Lot 1, Block 80. And just wanted to clarify, I understand it's a non-condemnation and that eminent domain is not an option here. I believe there was probably misspoken when one of the lots was referred to as possibly being taken. I want to just clarify that it cannot be taken.
It cannot be taken, that is
Okay.
correct.
Okay, I heard that and that, little red flag. Also, what, if you can enlighten me, because I'm not well versed in this, what does redevelopment mean specifically? Or what options are there for redevelopment? What is that?
So redevelopment allows a municipality to work closely with the developer, owner of a property, to come up with ways to better develop the property, better use the property. It's usually a distressed property. The criteria that your property satisfies
I've read that.
are outlined. Okay,
Mhm.
so outlined. So you know what the property
Mhm.
issues are.
Mhm.
And so the borough then can work on developing zoning that would maximize the use of your property. Help with incentivizing, potentially through tax incentives. Redevelopment area designations carry with it the ability to grant long-term pilots, tax exemptions for development. There can be creative ways to work with other property owners in the overall development of the site. And then if you're doing certain types of projects, affordable housing projects, you get higher scoring in a redevelopment area. So it allows the borough to work outside the general scope of their zoning code to change the zoning for a particular project that best suits the borough's needs at the time, as well as the property owner's vision for what that property should be like. So
Okay.
it gives a lot of flexibility,
Mhm.
but it also requires a lot of the redeveloper.
Mhm.
So, you don't just get special zoning. There's a give and take. It's a public-private partnership,
Mhm.
and that's what the words of in the statute.
Okay. So special zoning is, I'm not looking for special zoning. Mr. Buck talked about how it's zoned residential. Every building on that property is commercial. And the property was commercial up till 1991, I believe it was. So my question is it going to be rezoned as commercial? I can't sell or get any tenants in the building because I have to go through use variances and it costs thousands, tens of thousands of dollars and takes months to get it. I've had potential tenants walk away because they don't want to deal with it. They don't want anything to do with it. I have buyers walk away. I've had buyers denied because of use variances. So is this a part of the plan to rezone this block?
Could I speak to that? So at this point, this is just a preliminary investigation.
Correct.
I understand. So it's premature to talk about what is the next step, which is the redevelopment plan. The redevelopment plan is what is the document that creates the special zoning.
Mhm.
That zoning could be in the place of an overlay zone that only comes into effect uses and zoning that only comes into effect when a redeveloper is named, or the redevelopment plan could say these uses are permitted within this redevelopment zone. So, but that discussion and that aspect has not been reviewed, that has not been generated or prepared. This is only a discussion and a hearing. Do these properties meet the criteria
Understood.
for redevelopment? So you can go to the next step.
Okay.
So without this step and without this public hearing and without an affirmative vote by the board, it can't go to the next step to review whether those type of zoning changes can be.
Okay.
But you're more than welcome to, you have provided your wishes that you rather the residential zoning be changed. And there'll be
Certainly.
another opportunity when the redevelopment plan is in place, because it will have to come back to this board for consistency review. So keep an eye out for when a redevelopment plan.
What role, if any, do the current owners of the properties have in that redevelopment plan? Is that redevelopment plan determined by the town and then
It is
dictated to
determined.
us, or are we have a
So-
say in any of that?
So there's a lot of different ways that can happen.
Mhm.
There are, depending on how truncated it becomes, if each of the current property owners isn't cooperative and isn't going to engage in a cooperative type of development, and each parcel has to get developed individually, that could create roadblocks that could take a lot of time. Council and the planning board have to take a good look at what the best uses for the
Mhm.
site are, based upon the needs of the borough. And there are certain things that if residential development were to come into play, any developer would have to be willing to develop affordable housing because the borough has affordable housing obligations that it has to meet. So there are other considerations
Mhm.
in working through a redevelopment plan and process. Right now, after the hearing tonight, this board is going to make a recommendation back to mayor and council. And then mayor and council will do an official designation. And they could accept the recommendation of the board to include lot 2.03, or they could reject that. But at this point, after this step, the designation occurs. We notify the Department of Community Affairs of the designation, and then we can proceed with a development stage.
Is there a schedule or any kind of timeline set on this, or what at least the next step?
So mayor and council will probably take action at their next meeting.
We can take action at the next meeting, that would then, we would then report it to the state as an area, but, you know, again, assuming the board we then take action, we were closing out the ordinance, the public hearing, and then we would adopt the ordinance from the state. And then at that point, we would be free to enter into, well, correction, we would have to adopt.
Redevelopment plan.
Redevelopment plan. And to give you an example, the last study existing zoning has redevelopment, which allow us then to enter into agreements, memorandum of understanding with potential developers. Some developers are existing owners, some developers are, you know, people that were buying property. And then, we craft additional overlays. We can craft additional overlay zoning that's permitted as a redevelopment plan for the lots. As we work with, like I said, again, as Emily has articulated, with the board, with historic preservation, with within a historic preservation zone, and with a planner who helps us craft a plan that's going to be really viable and beneficial to the community. It's a public-private partnership. Exactly what it is. So hypothetically, if you were a developer of your own property, you want to develop it, you would be a partner in that discussion. Does that make sense?
It does. Still not clear on a timeline, though.
No. Yeah, it's hard to say because.
There's no condemnation.
Yeah.
You could literally, if it comes to whether or not, we could write a plan ourselves, put it on that space. And it could just sit there and never be used, right? Or you could come and say, I have an idea, the project, and I want to work with mayor and council. And then we're setting the timeline from there. Does that make sense a little bit? Like, there's
Too many factors to, I understand.
yeah, it's because there's no condemnation, so there's nothing to force anyone, we can't force the developer to develop.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It does. It does.
So it's really whether or not the person who owns it or somebody who is potentially buying it.
Has an idea and wants to come
And
and present it
when
to
we
mayor
say
and council.
potentially buying it, they have to have a contractual interest for them to
Yes.
start the negotiations.
Mhm.
So it's not like I'm thinking about buying it, I'm gonna go change the zoning on your property. That's not the case.
Right.
Remember, the zoning never changes. This is an overlay.
Likely it will be an overlay.
It could be. I mean, but that, but that,
There is
that's,
potential to supersede
I
the
just didn't wanna
zoning, but
say-
that's not
that's,
really.
but again, that's premature. That's not what's contemplated here.
Yeah.
So
Today is just the
no
designation.
plans have been put in place in terms of changing any zoning. This is just the first part of the process. This set that these areas are in need of redevelopment, non-condemnation. And then the next step would be, whenever that naturally occurs, would be to do one redevelopment plan or multiple redevelopment plans based on the individual parcels. And that really is based on the borough's track record of typically only doing those type of redevelopment plans when someone who has an interest in the property, we're either owner or contract purchaser, is at the table talking about what can be done at the property. I think it's fair to say.
And you did mention uncertainty. You know, you've been looking for investors or buyers, and there's some uncertainty as to what the zoning is. When you're designated, that tends to give some certainty to potential investors, because now it's proven that the borough has an interest in improving the area. And that's
Right.
It's on record with the states. Now the state's involved. So
Right.
everyone is focused on making your property better.
Yeah.
And that adds some certainty to potential investors.
I see that as a positive, but I also see that this could go on indefinitely. So if I needed to have my building reclassified or overlaid as a commercial property so that I could have potential buyers or investors, could that happen separate, independently of this redevelopment? And what would it take to make that happen?
That would be, we would go through the process, which would be like, mayor and council, they introduce ordinance, they say, the copy.
It's generally counterproductive to a redevelopment process to go through a different type of a zoning, to change zoning. You go through almost the same type of process by introducing that, coming back to the board for master plan consistency, and then adopting it. But then if you're also contemplating redevelopment, it's just layer
I
upon
understand.
layer.
It's
Takes
only
more
the same
time.
I'm just wondering how long it's going to take.
Yeah,
If that would be a
take
quicker
much longer
process,
for you, so.
that would delay it.
Yeah.
Understood. Okay, thank you.
I was gonna say, I recall testimony from real estate folks specific to lot one,
Mhm.
having, it's that they had done pro formas for multi-family residential.
Right.
And not working on lot one. But you have to understand with other lots, they actually work.
Mhm.
So that's where the firm's heading.
Understood.
Okay? And that's why there's interest amongst the other owners.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other members of the public want to speak or ask any questions? Seeing none, we'll close public comment, bring it back to the board. So our action tonight is making a recommendation to accept the study back to council this evening with any recommendations, Emily?
Yes, yes. And I did prepare a resolution for you, but that resolution does not include
I was just looking at it.
lot .203. So if you are interested in including that, I will amend the resolution to reflect that. But you can just let,
I imagine hearing the various board members tonight and the property owners that are involved in that block that we would probably want to include lot 2.03. So if somebody would like to, are there any other recommendations with respect to the report that anybody would like to make back to the governing body in addition to including 2.03? Do we need to make any other special designation for, is that 2.02 or 2.01 in the front? 2. Do we need to make any special recommendations with respect to that, since it's the green area and not need a redevelopment, or?
So
we're already
that one is
covered?
going to be included.
Okay.
I think that the idea is to still include it within
Yeah.
the designated area.
Okay,
But we will also add in lot 2.03 for the same reason, under
Okay.
that same criteria.
green shady, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions or comments or additions, deletions? So that being said, I guess we're looking for a motion to recommend the designation that's spelled out in the plan and then in the
So it would be the
report.
designation of
Block.
Block 26, Lot 12, as well as Block 80, Lots 1, 2, 2.01, and 2.03
As non-condemnation
as
area.
non-condemnation area in need of redevelopment, with the balance of the study area not meeting any criteria and not being designated.
Thank you. Would anybody like to make such a motion?
What was the first lot?
It's the
Lot 26,
Bank
lot
building.
12.
PNC Bank.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the lot 26 and the lot 80 with the inclusion of lot 2.03. And was there any other, there were no others, and excluding the other.
Excluding the other
the other
lots.
lots that were.
As put on the resolution by the solicitor,
As put on.
Balance of the properties are not
by redevelopment solicitor.
within the study. What Emily said.
I'll second.
Roll call, Suzanne, or any questions or comments on the motion? I'm sorry. Seeing none, roll call, Suzanne?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Emily.
You're welcome. And I will make the revisions to the resolution.
You wanna
And I'll include everyone who spoke.
Thank
If you
you.
want to send it to me electronically, I can sign it that way.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Emily.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Steve.
Non-condemnation's easier, right?
Yeah, much easier.
So Sherman.
Thank you. Any questions, give me a call.
Thank you.
I just need to sign your oath, Tyler.
We have any other business, Suzanne?
I have one item, Mr. Chairman, if I can add, I'm sorry.
Bach has other business.
Under administrative business, if we could just add under roll call and future agendas, swearing in of professionals, that'll take care of swearing in of me once in the
I like
beginning.
that
And
idea.
I'm trying to do that in every single one of my board appointments. So not always going like this, raising my hand, I'm just sworn in the beginning of the hearing and then it's done. Is that acceptable?
That's acceptable.
Perfect.
You just need to sign your name on that line on the right.
You could get all kinds of different, I think I might adopt that strategy.
That's what we do in my other boards.
Yeah.
I just swear the professionals in the beginning.
We'll start doing that.
Yeah. It makes a lot more
It's
sense.
so
You don't need to be
much-
sworn 100 times.
Yeah.
Anything else, Suzanne? Anybody, anything for the good of the order with the board?
I haven't heard anything from Chris.
Don't let her think.
Right?
Can we just, he had an answer, but I thought we had backdated and.
Who's just cleaning it up?
Yeah,
They're so close.
yeah.
Let me get it from him.
Are you having a subcommittee on this? 'Cause I had several comments on it also. I would like to be,
Let me get it from him and get it back to you guys. We'll put that.
and I think it could be,
Before I have to run.
I really think it's, on the sign ordinance, I know there was gonna be a subcommittee meeting on it several times. If we could just get it, even if we do it virtually, like a Teams meeting or Zoom meeting, kind of go through it and everybody pop their comments and then someone act as a scribe and we can get it done. We have a lot of technical comments in terms of lighting and Kelvin and all kinds of things that I don't even know how to do.
That was much
So,
better.
That's fine.
all right.
I think if we had
Chris
more.
has, he has.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and it was a very good draft. It was just some of the items.
We want to adjourn?
Yeah, we need to adjourn.
Anybody else have anything for the good of the order?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Dean said, "My house."